I'll just remind councillors to sign in.
And Councillor Perry's going to be late.
See, I can see that. Thank you. Good morning. I'll call this meeting to order. I would like to, first I'll just say that Councillor Perry is going to be late. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki and the district of Spagnagity, the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. East Hants further acknowledges the 50 African Nova Scotian communities whose 400-year history have contributed to the province's culture, history, and legacies. We are all treaty people. Firstly, I'll be looking for the approval of the agenda of all subcommittees. All those in favor?
Aye.
The agenda is approved. Looking for any changes to the minutes of June 16th, 2026. Seeing no changes, the minutes are approved. First item is the new employee announcements and position changes with the CAO.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillors, just the changes this month are in the Finance Department. We had a vacancy in Finance, and a few people have shifted around, taking on different responsibilities. So Justine has moved from the front desk to the back office to do the accounts payment and accounting administrator role. And Rachel has taken, who was at the front desk, has taken her role, which is also still at the front desk, as the finance clerk. Same seating area, just very different functions and responsibilities. So we have hired a term position to fill in at the front desk, so you'll see a new face there with announcements next month. Thanks.
Thank you. Next item is employee recognitions with the warden.
Okay. Sorry, my computer's catching up with me here. Welcome, everyone. First this morning, we are pleased to recognize Alana Richards on 5 years of service. Alana quickly became an integral part of the CAO office team and respected coworker across the organization. She started in 2021 as the administrative assistant for the CAO office and economic and business development, transitioning to the business and legislative administrator for a period of time, and more recently as the legislative and HR administrator. She has been and will continue to offer more support the HR functions in addition to her support work with council and the CAO's office. Alana has a strong sense of customer service and professionalism in all that she does, and council has experience with her dedication firsthand as she supports council work, including preparation of agendas, minutes, certificates, and helps facilitate travel arrangements for council events and much more. Alana is deeply committed to learning, and in addition to her busy role with the municipality and a mother of 2 young children, she completed her associate certificate in local government in 2022 from Dalhousie University and the National Advanced Certificate in Local Authority Administration Level 1 from the University of Alberta earlier this spring while she was on maternity leave. She has already enrolled in additional training this year that will continue to serve the municipality well. If she wasn't busy enough, Alana spends her spare moments working on her farmstead with her family. Join me in celebrating Alana on her first 5 years of hopefully many more to come. As I read these speeches, it strikes me that I've been here a really long time. As I remember when these folks started out, and we're so fortunate to have them. Next, we are going to recognize Tippy Scott for her 10 years of service to the municipality. Tippy started working for the municipality as the planning and development technician in June of 2016. Her role involved assisting both the development control and the planning functions. A large part of her work involved assisting the development officer with the processing of subdivision applications, which requires the understanding of a lengthy and detailed subdivision bylaw. This is no easy task, and Tippy rose to the challenge by quickly learning how to interpret and administer this bylaw. In August of 2021, Tippy moved into the role of geomatics coordinator. The use of GIS throughout the organization has become more and more integrated into how we make sound knowledge-based decisions. In this role, Tippy has excelled at providing support to many people and departments through the organization, which includes supporting the EMO function, creating online maps so the public can identify parks and playgrounds, and creating maps for the plan review. Tippy is also ready and able to step in on other areas outside of her normal duties. For example, she sure showed the planners how it's done by facilitating the table with the greatest number of people at the recent Enfield Visioning meeting. In her personal time, Tippy is involved with the arts sector by helping with theater productions. More recently, she has stage managed shows such as Little Women at the Theater Arts Guild's Pond Playhouse. Congratulations, Tippy.
In the background. I'm gonna go this way. Thank you. Congratulations.
Okay, congratulations to those staff members. Next item on the agenda this morning is year-end carry-forward report with Wade.
Good morning, everybody. This morning we have a couple of reports coming forward. One is about the 25-26 budget carry forwards request. This is a report that comes forward every year after fiscal year end has been completed. Essentially, this is all about budget items that was in the previous fiscal year 25-26, but because of whatever issues may have arisen during that fiscal year, those budget items weren't able to be completed, and the respective budget managers have put in a request that these items now be carried forward into the next fiscal year, which is this current fiscal year 26-27. You have a list of those items in the report down here, indicating what they were relating to, the dollar amount, and the source of funding that they're coming from in this fiscal year 26-27. That's the majority of the report, but there is another item that's mentioned on the second page in relation to the pension reserves. As we're going through the fiscal year end, we noted that we had the actuarial report at that point in time from Plenus, our actuaries, indicating that there would be some changes in relation to employer contribution rates required into the future, we felt it prudent at fiscal year end to take that opportunity to transfer part of the surplus from the, where it would have ended up, the GTR surplus of 510,000 and the USR just under 24,000, and put it into the pension reserve so that there will be funding or funds available in that respective reserve in the future years, because we're quite confident that those funds will be needed in that reserve at that point in time, or into the future, I mean. So there is the motion that's for, or the recommendation that's there, which covers both aspects of this report, the budget carry forwards and the transfer to the pension reserve. And if there's any questions, I can try to answer them, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Not seeing any, oh, Counselor Tingley.
Through the chair, I'll move the motion as presented. Seems pretty straightforward. Move that the Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommend that council ratify the transfer to reserves and year-end carry forward amounts presented in the 2025-26 budget. Carry forward requests report dated January 15th, 2026 and presented July 21st, 2026 be accepted as approved.
Motion made and seconded. Seeing no one to speak, we'll go to the vote. And the motion has passed with a vote of 9-1, with Counselor Merriam voting nay. Okay, and the next,
Okay, so the next report is in relation to the Housing Accelerator Fund. We're making some recommendations in regard to the reallocations of those funds to various capital or operating projects. Over the past couple of years since this fund has been established, and when we were awarded $5.885 million over 4 years, council has made a variety of motions to allocate those funds, and essentially at this point in time, we're a little over a year and a half away from the end point when we have to actually spend all those funds. So after our fiscal year end of March 31st, 2026, finance staff looked at all of the allocations that have been made and approved by council, and we also looked at where we're at in all those projects, and we also had discussions with the various budget managers, whether it be in planning or I&O or Parks and Rec or in administration or the CAS office, and to see where we stood, we felt they stood in those projects and when they would actually get done and how much funds they would need in that time frame. So because of those discussions and analysis, we're coming forward now with a reallocation, recommended reallocation of all those funds. And you can see in the report here, we've listed the allocations as approved by council as at March 31st, 2026. You'll note that they're slightly over 5.885, and that's simply because as we have those funds allocated in our reserves, they earn interest over the year, so it's actually will be a little bit more than 5.885 that we'll have to allocate. It shows you the amount spent as of March 31st, 2026 on all those various projects, the dollars left to spend, and the items in the column second from the right, recommended $0.50 reallocation. Those are the numbers we're indicating how they should be reallocated. And of course, you can see that some funds are being taken away from various projects, and some are recommended to go to other projects because we feel that they can be done within that deadline of February 23rd, 2028. And so and then the final column indicating what will be left if these to be spent in that timeframe. Yeah, so essentially that's it. The recommended motion is there. I would say that, I think the senior team is cognizant of the fact that there's a lot of money to be spent in the next approximately year and a half. It is a very important matter from the seniors team perspective that it does get spent so we don't lose those funds. And I have it on my own personal agenda to have discussions with the specific directors and budget managers to emphasize the importance of making sure these funds get spent in that time frame. So if, of course, this motion is passed. Yeah, that's it, Madam Chair. If there's anything I can try to answer, I will.
Thank you. First to speak is Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question through the staff. Do you see any danger of any of those projects not being completed by 2028 based on economics or?
I think there's definitely some risks there, yes. Yep. And as we go forward, I think that we have to continually monitor this over the next 18 months and make changes as required and continue to discuss this at the senior team, so we can't lose sight of this. I would say we have incurred delays. I would note in my mind and from my discussions in particular, I think the Brookside Wastewater Revitalization Project, which we're now allocating more money to, but it's been delayed in my mind for some reasons, but I think those have been pretty much cleared away. So we hope that that will proceed quickly now. And that's a big project which we can allocate money to. But there's definitely, absolutely risks there that, and that's up to CAO and the directors and the budget managers to ensure that that doesn't happen.
So if the project's not complete, the money goes back to the,
As our understanding right now with the agreement with the feds is there will be no extension beyond February 23rd, 2028. And we will have to refund the money to them. There is also an aspect of this agreement which is an unknown in that 5.885 million is contingent upon meeting all the requirements that's stated in the agreement. And some of it is relation to different types of housing, construction and starts and things like that. And I think we are somewhat behind in some of those areas right now. John could probably comment on the specific details, or Debbie if she was here, but I think it might be termed the missing middle, if I recall correctly, those types of housing. So there's an aspect of that which is unknown to us, because if we don't meet all those targets as included in the original agreement, they have indicated to us that they will cut back on that 5.885 million, but they have in no way indicated by how much or any degree. It'll be just, they'll tell us that's at the end. So there is that risk as well, that we may not get the full $5.885 million.
is there any chance that we could catch up?
Catch up?
Yeah, while we're behind in,
So this reallocation is meant to try to catch up.
okay.
And,
And
the
housing.
housing. I have to say, I don't know the specifics of that. John, did you want to make any comments on that?
Oh, sorry. John, can you press your button again, please? I've got these new glasses.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. To answer the councillor's question, yes, there is, I think, a reasonable chance we'll catch up. And again, there aren't, the numbers aren't crazy in East Hants, so, one or two apartment buildings can kind of catch you up. And it is, as Wade mentioned, the missing middle, so those are sort of medium-sized apartment buildings. So if we get a few permits in over the next little while, we could catch up, but, hard to say. We can't tell developers what to do, we can only make it available.
It just takes time to build, that's all. Thank you, that's all.
Okay, next to speak is Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what's gonna happen to the Mount Uniacke streetlight project if we take the 100,000 off?
So, I actually had a chat yesterday, or exchange of emails yesterday with the INO manager on that project as to the status of it. Now, my understanding is they've actually completed that project and it's done. My understanding is, however, that as it was originally planned and designed way back 2 or 3 years ago, whenever it was started, it significantly reduced the number of streetlights from the original plan. And as I understand it, it had to do with the fact that Nova Scotia Power only provided power to certain areas or certain lamp areas. And therefore, the full number that had originally planned, which I think might have been in the 400 unit or 400 individual units, was significantly reduced. I don't know the final number. I didn't get that information from the INO staff. But essentially, the project is done, from my understanding, from what I've been said. And from my understanding, INO staff, I believe, have tried to keep the respective councillors informed on that project.
Okay, so the total cost for the project was more than that, right?
The total cost of the original budget was $420,000. It's going to be significantly way under that. We're still waiting for final numbers from my INO team to put together. From what I'm seeing right now, it's going to be under $200,000 in total cost, of which we will have funding to cover that, either through the half funding or other funding that had been originally assigned to that project. So we do have funding to completely cover that project.
Well, I wish staff came out to us before, because we could have used those streetlight in other locations where we have access to Nova Scotia Power connection, instead of moving it to a project in a different area, so.
I can't speak to, I know, staff communicating with you on that matter. And as far as the half funding is confirmed, though, it definitely will not be needed for that individual project. There's no reason, however, that should council want to reallocate half again, and it's my full expectations that we'll be coming back again once, twice more, maybe as early as this fall, with other recommendations on how the half funding should be reallocated. So perhaps if there's more items in Mount Uniacke that can be discussed with the INO staff, some of these half funding can be reallocated there, as long as, again, we're up against time frame of February 23rd, 2028 to get the job done completely.
So one more question. Were there any, that project was supposed to be done by the gas tax rebate, whatever, the community fund that we have? And
Yeah,
was there any money spent from that fund on that project, or?
The total accounting for that project has not been done yet, but there are two sources of funding for it. One was half and one was CCBF, which was the old gas fund. So we'll have to look at, once we know the total full cost of that project and where it's going to be allocated from. But it can be allocated either from half or from that other fund, and we'll wait and see what the total full cost was before we determine how to allocate it.
Yeah, so why don't that 130,000 go back to the CC Canada Building Fund?
Yeah.
Instead of going to that project, or whatever left, or whatever we can
Yep,
offset from that to go back to the original. Then if any left over, I don't mind going to the other project. But
yep, no, we can.
I'm just going to let the CAO weigh in on that.
Through you, Madam Chair, I was just going to suggest the same thing.
Yep,
thank you.
Is that all, Counselor?
Yes, thank you.
Next to speak is Counselor Merriam.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, just to pick up on that last point, so is a change in these numbers actually being proposed for today's purposes?
not for me.
Okay, all right. A question, Madam Chair, through you to Wade. Yeah, no, this is a great report in terms of reshuffling items so that we are on track for meeting the deadline. Glad to hear that we can make future changes as well. That's perfect. I would find it helpful to know what kind of a rough deadline would look like, just to kind of have that in mind. And I guess what I mean is, clearly, if we had a report like this 3 months before the deadline, I would question the usefulness of that. A year from now, July of 27, we don't meet in August, then you're roughly 6 months before the deadline. Not trying to put words in your mouth, but if you were to give us kind of a rough timeline, what would that look like for a deadline, please? So the last time we would get a report like this before, that's it?
Yeah, I would, off the top of my head, I would suggest that from a finance perspective, we would absolutely be looking at this again and where we sit in the late fall of 2026. And if we can bring a report back then and tell you where we're sitting. And then again, and so that would be incorporated likely into the budget numbers, any changes that you may want there. And then I would suggest it would probably be right after fiscal year end of March 31st, 2026, as soon as we have the final numbers, which probably wouldn't be till June of 2027. And you would still have approximately almost 8 months to finish things up.
Okay.
Of course, there would be 8 months you would be working very hard to get everything spent.
Yep, thank you. That's it for me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Counselor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. While I appreciate the over $5 million gift, not a gift, but a project from the federal government, however, I am not a big fan, and I never have been, of the HAF project itself. However, having said that, when I look at the list, there's very little that can be really attributed back to the rural area, and this is kind of disappointing for me in a way. Yes, there is some items that we can say, oh yeah, that has a little bit to it, but for the most part, it does not have a lot. However, I think we have to move forward, and I move that the Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommend that Council approve the reallocation of the HAF funding as noted in Table 1 of the July 21st, 2026 report.
Motion made and seconded. Next to speak is the CAO.
It can be after the motion.
Okay. Counselor Musa to the motion.
To do what I said about the Mount Uniacke, do we have to amend it or?
I have it.
Okay.
Okay, the motion's been made. Seeing no one to speak, we'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Thank you for that. Go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think to Councillor Musa's question about the Mount Uniacke streetlights, I think if you were to make a motion just to give staff direction that the next iteration of the HAF funding allocation consider funding 100% of the Mount Uniacke streetlight project, then that would give us our direction for the next time we do this exercise of allocating funds. The next iteration of HAF funding allocations, which Wade has said will come in the fall, consider funding 100% of Mount Uniacke streetlight project. from half funding.
Go ahead, Counselor.
I move that in the next iteration of the half funding coming in the fall, in the next fall, and to consider using all the half funding, all the total cost of the Mount Uniacke street light from half funding.
Motion made and seconded. Seeing no one to speak, we'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Okay, next item on the agenda is potable water options during droughts with Calvin and Adam.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Let's try this one more time. And one more time. Yeah, let's see. Okay. The computer connection is not in my corner this morning, so Shirley will drive for us. So, in your June committee meeting and subsequently council meeting, you provided direction to staff to return with information around bulk water carriers, community organizations, and although it wasn't part of the motion, there was discussion around rain barrel programs, and if we had time, we were able to work that into this report as well. So we're back here today in front of you, and really that conversation stemmed, as a refresher, stemmed from the province ceasing their bottled water program funding. They've made public statements that from an emergency services, emergency management perspective, they are not considering drought an emergency, and subsequently the funding's gone away with the programs. And we provided quite a lengthy report last month on that, and then that's where the direction came from, just to take another look at it from a different angle. So there were discussions with community organizations. We did a little bit of reflecting on what happened last year. There were three local fire departments that on their own took initiative to provide various levels of water during later in the summer months during the drought season. That was Mount Uniacke, Maitland, and Enfield. And that was without municipal intervention. We had some conversations with bulk water carriers to really understand, is there capacity to move bulk water options in the time of need, if that was determined. And really, some of the carriers we talked to don't have capacity. They're already pretty, they've got their routes. There was one that was interested in exploring further with us. Commitment levels at this point wasn't there. However, there was some really high level costing that Calvin spoke with them about, just to get a sense of cost and magnitude. And, we were estimating approximately $2,000 a day if you had a water truck kind of go from, you probably could do probably two communities a day or three like that, and it was about $2,000 a day. So if you were to provide that service, the cost would probably go incrementally over the weeks and months should you choose. And the commitment wasn't necessarily even there. It was willing to kind of explore that option within their regular service and customers. So those are kind of the first two pieces that we looked at. The third piece was the rain barrel program, and I'm not going to go into detail in the report. There's a chart in there that talks about various programs. There was a jurisdictional scan, and actually Clean Nova Scotia helped us with this, and appreciative of that. That kind of looked at different programs out there, and YouthLinks was offering something locally as a fundraiser. They haven't done it in a few years, but there's various different programs, and I'll get back to our recommendation in a minute that really kind of summarizes where we think council may want to consider going with the rain barrel program. And one that isn't we heard back from, that is in the chart, that's not updated, I think it was Queens County. They launched theirs, and I think they spent initially 50,000, that's not in there, but since the report was published, they had 50,000, and they might have even subsequently added to that. Their program was well received by the residents. Some of these programs are only for rural, they're not for the urban. Some of them are broad brush across the municipality. And I think with our case, that's where we would recommend a council would go, as a kind of a broad brush for every resident. So that doesn't necessarily help with the prevention side and the planning, but it is another tool for residents to have water gather in the rain barrel program that they could use on their properties for their purposes. The last piece in here is kind of the long term, and one of the councilors had a question about long term planning, and there's a section in the report around our climate change action plan update. And the draft document, which council hasn't seen yet, it will be coming forward to you, does talk about water scarcity and drought resilience, and that's really kind of that long-term piece. And there's a handful of bullet points in the staff report under that. I'm not going to go through it, but just know that there is strategic planning that we will be recommending down the road to look at the long term. So, you know, the short term, you can look at a rain barrel program or others. We're not recommending at this point moving forward with the bulk water carriers. It probably would be pretty challenging to get the commitment there. Doesn't mean we couldn't do it, but if you wanted to, we would have to allocate the funding towards it and look at that. But we are recommending, if you, Shirley, go back up to the recommendations there, really two things in the actual recommendation section, and I'll get to the motion. The first one is that we continue to place a focus on improving community well resiliency around that piece, as well as additional education and preparedness. And also, as part of the council's municipal climate change action plan, there'll be recommendations around resiliency for water access. So that's the first piece. There isn't a motion towards that one. We're going to keep going with that pending any discussion. And the second piece is that your draft budget includes a rain barrel program for consideration and for discussion. And for that, we're looking at the motion there. Also talks about storage totes, so it's not only rain barrels, there could be storage totes as well as part of that program. And we're suggesting 50,000 for that budget consideration. And we would look at likely through a rebate program. Is one of the discussions that we would have. Some of the municipalities drop off rain barrels, transport them. Our municipality, with how we're set up, we don't have the capacity and resources to kind of ship and receive and to that level. There's some really good existing programs that we could partner with that are referenced in the report that we think would really, it'd be more of an administrative process and promotion process, and then the homeowners could collect that. So we would come back in your budget discussions with that program a little more fleshed out, should you choose, and those are the recommendations to the report, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you for the report. First to speak is Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Adam, you mentioned that 3 fire departments have done it on their own. And I noticed that those 3 fire departments are one of the most funded by the taxpayers. Like, they have more fund than others. So why don't we approach the other fire department or all the fire department in the rural area, see if they could do that as maybe a fundraiser for their fire department, like you give them the money instead of getting some bulk water hauler and stuff like that. So I think we should reach to our own fire department first before we move on to other ideas. That's how I feel. I don't know.
Adam? Oh, sorry. Didn't.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I turned my mic off there.
Okay.
I guess the one thing I didn't mention in the report, which kind of speaks to kind of a little bit of your question there, was around the capacity of the volunteers and the setup. We know two of the three of those stations, the Enfield and Uniac, have daytime staffing resources, so they chose to on their own without municipal intervention. We looked at and maybe there's a fundraising component there that could be explored, but we did look at facilitating shipping of bottled waters to your local fire stations, but then it puts the burden on the volunteers and so forth, and that's kind of where we didn't want to go there at the staff level. So, kudos to, the Mount Uniac and Enfield who provided that. And then Maitland also added in a tap to their station for residents. And really they've done that on their own, and they've done their own risk assessments towards how they're operating that. And we've kind of kept our hands off approach for that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next to speak is Councillor Tingley.
Through the chair, just want to make one point first. The province stated that they do not consider drought an emergency. I'm not sure that I agree with that. Like this motion, I think the warden made it, was about extreme drought. And to me, extreme drought is an emergency if people don't have adequate drinking water. And I think what we need is a drought resilience plan, and I don't know if that's associated with the climate action plan or it needs to be a plan separate from there. But we live in an area with a number of watersheds, and I don't know if we are able to conserve at times so that we have water or what has to be done. But I'm sure there are experts that could provide us with reports that are ideas and options that we could do to try to help people. In the interim, I certainly would support, I'm going to support this motion, and I think it's a good temporary solution, but I think we need a long-term, robust drought resilience plan. We're used to living in a moist climate, and this hasn't been a serious problem for us up to now, and I don't know how. Are you signaling to me, or?
No, Shirley, just for the report, sorry.
Right. But to staff, are we going to have a robust drought resilience plan baked into our climate action plan? I see some comments there, but I'm not convinced that we're. And if so, when would we likely see it?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. So the initiative that Council will see as part of your climate change action plan update will speak to water scarcity and drought resiliency plan. The need to do one, which I think is what, and I think it's the same line of thought process that you're articulating there, Councillor. But that would be an initiative that comes forward in the plan update. We won't have a drought plan as part of that. It'll be an initiative listed in there, and then from there, we have to go out and resource it, and whether it's bringing in experts or doing it internally, looking at how we draft the scope and the framework around that. But you're absolutely correct. That is something we have to look at from the drought side and resilience. So timeline, I can't articulate that. We are planning on bringing Council, I don't want to commit to, I guess it'd be probably winter time, your action plan update, and the initiative would be identified in there. And we're happy to chat and have you chat with Ann offline too, just to get some further thoughts on that from an alignment perspective. And then from there, you have your initiatives, and like any plan, that we need to take those initiatives and then build them out into your timeline. So it's, just being straightforward, it will take time to get there, but Council prioritizing that then puts it in our work plan to action and resource.
So would it be reasonable to make a motion around getting a drought resilience plan now?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think you need to have it as part of your whole climate change action plan, and then look at all of your priorities and prioritize. You could have a motion separate to that if that's your choice. You could have a motion. It's one of the recommendations in the report. We were going to do it anyways, but you could have a motion to then place Council's priority on it now to ensure it's in your climate action plan update. If you're wanting it aside from that timeline, I think it's important for council to look at the whole picture and then prioritize. Maybe that's your priority number one out of your initiatives. So I'll leave it with council to have that discussion, and absolutely a motion would be appropriate to either reaffirm from the staff report that it's in your plan, so it's in there, or if you want to pull it out, we could look at how we do that as part of your budget cycle.
Well, it's not, I don't think it's a priority number one, but some of these things that we're facing, wildfires, droughts, flooding, I would like to see a more firm timeline on planning around those type of things.
So through you, Madam Chair, I think what I'll suggest, just listening to the conversation, is that you put a motion on the floor when appropriate, that it's included as part of the climate change action plan, a water scarcity and drought resiliency plan, and that within the climate action plan it identifies a timeline. So then when that plan comes forward, council can prioritize if that timeline meets the needs of council and priorities.
And that motion could be made now?
It can be made now.
I don't know how to, how the
So,
wording of it.
through you, Madam Chair, if I could just suggest a draft motion that direct the climate change action plan update to include an initiative around water scarcity and drought resiliency plan as part of the plan update being brought forward to council, and a timeline associated with it.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
That will come.
Yeah.
The motion is asking for that when the climate report.
Okay, so the motion's been made. Do we have a seconder? Okay. On before the motion, Councillor Merriam.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. And a few comments and thoughts about this motion. So I think the rain barrel program is very interesting. It's certainly topical. We can see from the staff report that our colleague, various other municipalities have entered the foray with different programs with different dollar amounts. And I think that is very interesting. I think it would be interesting and important to many of our residents. I really appreciate, as a centerpiece of helping folks, especially in rural areas without piped-in water, our municipal well and septic program, and the importance of that in terms of maintaining proper funding. And I know council in the past year or so we've increased the dollar amount allocation to that program. And again, I see it as a real centerpiece of our helping residents in that particular area. If I understand correctly, I don't believe Halifax Regional Municipality has a funded rain barrel program. If staff is aware of.
Point of order, I'm not sure if this is no.
This is
Is
towards
this
motion.
the motion
Yes.
that I made?
He was on before the motion.
It's on the motion I made.
Not necessarily.
Okay, because the other motion, is that on the floor?
No.
So wouldn't we vote on the first motion, or the motion that's been made?
Well, there are people who were on before the motion,
Okay.
and whether they are speaking to the motion or not, we'll find out.
Okay.
Yes, this pertains to the original report and discussion. Is it still okay to
Good
continue?
to go. Yeah.
Thank you, appreciate that. So as an example, I reviewed an August 12th, 2025 water conservation tips promotional brochure put out by Halifax HRM and Halifax Water, and really recommending rain barrels and talking about the effectiveness of them, all of the benefits, and it was very informative. I had no idea, to be perfectly candid, what a rain barrel cost. It seems that they kind of start around $75 for a 220 liter rain barrel, and the price goes up depending on how nice you want it. So, I guess my takeaway based on my initial scan is I really like the idea of promotion. Councillor Tingley's motion of greater planning in this area. I really like that too. I did some time ago see that I believe Musquodoboit Harbor has a community well, and they seem to run independently, and it's an arrangement that I think works for the municipality and that community. But I would like to learn more about community wells and how that works, because I can see that as being a pretty interesting thing, especially in rural areas. So with that said, I'll just kind of finish where I said I see the centerpiece here as our municipal well and septic program, and I like the focus on that program. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next to speak is Warden Rolston.
Thank you. I agree with pretty well everything the previous speakers have said. I'm certainly going to support the motion that's currently on the floor, and I will be supporting the recommended motion as such time as it is made. The only thing that I will say is that I do support the rain barrel initiative. It's not going to solve any problems in time of drought because there's no rain to fill the rain barrels up. But during other times, other times of the year, it certainly could encourage water conservation all over the municipality. If folks are watering their lawns or their gardens out of their rain barrel in the serviced area, they're not using treated water from the water utility. They're using rainwater. And similarly, in the rural areas, we wouldn't be using water from our potable wells. We would be using free rainwater from Mother Nature. So I certainly do support it. I do think it's important that we don't lose sight of this, and I do appreciate the motion that is on the floor. And with regards, I also am interested in how community wells work. I'm also conscious of the cost of treated water and what the balance would be if you would have to. And I did forward an email I had on to Adam, and I'm sure he'll review it. He hadn't thought of it in that context of things that might be able to be done that would mitigate costs for something like that. I don't know. But I think we have to get our climate report and then look at the initiatives that it lists, and then make the decisions what our priorities are and how much money we're going to invest, how fast to make them happen, how quickly we want to make these things happen, and that will cost dollars. And so supportive of the motion, and we'll be supporting the motion that's on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Next to speak is Councillor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So along the lines of the warden, we talk about the rain barrel program, and of course that, it is contingent on the amount of rain we get. And, if we're in a drought condition, you're not going to get a lot of that. Rain barrel is not going to be used. We could get in other times of the year, but however, we can't use it in the winter because then the rain barrels will be freezing and so on. So we're very limited in the actual time that we get to collect that water. However, I am supportive of looking further into that. We touched on the fire department issues. Now, Maitland, I know, put that in just for the good of the community to come, people to come to get water. It was great. But again, you are subject on the amount of water that they have. They live in the same, they're in the same area as where the drought's taking place. So this continued on their well. However, they may not use as much water as a residential would with no showers, washing, and things like that. However, so I think there's a more of an avenue that we could go out. But like, again, it's dependent on the amount of water they have. It's dependent on if they want to travel in and around the area. And there's some liability issues that could be associated with that. However, I do think it is important to touch base and lead with those fire departments in the area because they are the center of most communities in and around East Hants. So I will support Councillor Tingley's motion on that. But the rain barrel program, I'm interested. I'm just not totally sold on that yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next to speak is Warden Rolston.
After the motion would be fine.
Okay. Counselor Miriam, to the motion?
Yes, I suppose it's too late now to go back to speak to the original report. Is that correct, or should I wait until we vote on the motion?
Right now, we're
Thank
going
you.
to.
Okay.
Okay. After that. Okay. So seeing no one left to speak to the motion, we will go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Okay, Warden. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just following up on the fire department comments, I'm sure all of our volunteer fire departments in any time of emergent drought or any other emergency will do everything they can. However, as Councillor Rhino mentioned, some of them are constrained with what they have for water. I mean, for example, my home department in Rawdon has lots of water, to the best of our knowledge, but they have an extremely expensive treatment system in place to make it potable, and it costs a lot of money to make that water potable. So it is very, very expensive. Then another department in my area in Gore, even with the re-drilling of a well there to supply more water to them, they still do not have a lot of extra water there at all. So it varies from place to place how much fire departments would be able to do and would be able to provide water. And depending on the location of the department too, I'm sorry, but in the society that we live in today, there is some risk that if you just make an outside tap available to the public to get water, that would be a great thing. All it would take would be one person to think it would be funny to come and turn that tap on and let it run forever. And you could be in a really big mess. So there's a lot to be considered there. I do think the departments are there, and I do think they would help if need be, but I don't think it's a burden that we can necessarily place on them, that we expect them to do this. I think we gratefully accept any help that they feel they are able to offer and assist them in any way we can with that. But it's, that's where I would see that going. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Miriam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This comment, I'm just putting my taxpayer hat on here, and the proposed budget and the proposed recommendation for this program at $50,000. I'm looking at the jurisdictional scan provided, and I'm just relaying what I'm seeing here. Town of Antigonish has a program that costs $2,500 for up to 50 households for barrels, first come, first serve. County of Antigonish has a program that costs $5,000, $50 a barrel, up to 100 households. I just look at that again with my taxpayer hat on, and how are we, we have a proposed figure of $50,000 here. I'm just having a bit of a hard time reconciling the two. Thank you.
Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. I think the response we heard from Queens County, which we didn't have the number in the report, so it's the higher number of the 50,000, and I think they've gone back to their council for additional funding, was our starting point. Because of the quick turnaround between June and July, we wanted to put something forward to council that we can then take back at a staff level over the next handful of months, and flush out what an actual program would be, that you can have those discussions as part of your budget conversation. So I guess we didn't want to sell ourselves short and put a small number. And I know the CAO may have something else to add into that.
She does. Go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair, the Queens had really great success with their program, and they have spent, or have budgeted to spend $84,000 on their program this year. They did a phase one, which had a budget of $50,000. They spent $39,000 of that, and then they just approved another $45,000, or sorry, another $33,000 to get them up to that 84. So it really depends on the order of magnitude that you want to support folks. If it's a rain barrel program for 50 people, it's very different than rain barrels and water totes. There is a barrier for some folks in the rural areas that, rain barrel won't be enough in those drought conditions. And to suit themselves up with a water tote with some support from the municipality would probably remove the financial barrier of that. There's other logistical things that need to be taken into account, but with those totes, then that opens up the ability to come to the bulk water station and get, a significant amount of water for storage on their own property or to fill their well, so.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to the CAO. So with the Queens example, that's not potable water, or some combination of drinkable, non-drinkable
So
through their program?
for the Queens example, they have two tiers. They have a low-income residents. They qualify for one rain barrel and one water tote for free. And then they have, for all other residents, they're eligible for 2 rain barrels and 1 water tote for $25 and $125 is what they have to pay for their rain barrels and water totes at that price. And then for those on the Liverpool water utility, they can only get the rain barrels. They can't get the totes because the totes are intended to go to the bulk water station and fill up. So they wouldn't need that if they're on the water utility.
Okay.
But they would be eligible for the totes.
Okay, thank
Or
you.
the barrel, sorry.
Warden?
Just a quick comment, because I think we're maybe straying from the intent of this report a little bit and getting into the weeds of what we'll discuss when the report comes forward. And we don't have the report yet, so we might be better off to wait for it. But just a quick comment on the numbers. The population would make a difference too, and East Hants has a much higher population of people than either of those two municipalities that were mentioned earlier. And so, and I suspect a larger operating budget, larger tax base, and that would make some difference too. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Also to catch up on the numbers, like I understand where Councillor Miriam is coming from about taxpayers' money, but just a few minutes ago, we saw a report about $5 million that this areas that didn't get any cents out of it. So giving back a little bit to those areas is not a big deal to me or to anybody on this council. Should be like, I think we're all a municipal unit and we should work for the whole municipality. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rhino?
Just a question, thank you, Madam Chair, thank you. Just a question through the staff. When you're talking on the Queens example, 1 rain barrel and a tote per household, is that for free for low income? However, what would the report say on, are we giving them out to everyone, even on the bulk water, on the serviced area here? I'm just wondering if they do that in Queens? Do they
Well, I
do it
think
in-
this is
Sorry.
information that will come with the report, right? CAO?
Through you, Madam Chair, in the Queens example, they do allow folks on their water utility to get rain barrels for their homes, but not the totes. They shouldn't need access to bulk water, but they do promote water conservation through their rain barrel program because they're still conserving water overall for the municipal water utility as well. So they allow both. Not to say that your program needs to mirror Queens. We don't, there's no recommendations here what that's going to look like. But if you want to do something more meaningful than your token water conservation through a rain barrel on your house for your residents, it's going to take more than $5,000. You're going to, if you want a meaningful program for 12,000 homes, even at the 50,000, you're going to hit about 300 or 400 homes max. So that was just an order of magnitude number to put in your budget. We'd have to come back with a full program of what it looks like, who's allowed, who's not, low income, not low income, totes, rain barrels, all of that would still have to be figured out. But you could say $100,000. You could say 10. It's just going to all depend on the order of magnitude of what you want your program to look like.
Well, I'd be interested in looking further into this. I'm not sold on every household, and we don't have to mirror Queens, or we don't have to mirror anyone. We can come up with our own established the way we want to hold this. And Reno, right now, just thinking off the cuff without hearing a report, I think we could start with the ones that are not on the service system and go and build from there. I think it has possibility, to keep the cost down as much as we can, but yet supply the service that is badly needed in these drought areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Warden Rolston?
Thank you. Well, as I said, I think we're getting into territory where we're wondering what our policy is going to look like and what the report is going to say. And when we get the report, if we want more than 50,000, we can recommend more than 50,000. If we want less, we can make less. So in the interest of time and moving forward, I'm going to move that the Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommends that council direct staff to include a water conservation assistance program with a total program budget of $50,000 to support the purchase of rain barrels or water storage totes for eligible residential properties in the 2027-2028 draft budget for further discussion.
Okay. Motion's made and seconded. Seeing no one left to speak, we'll go to the vote. Oh, sorry, actually. Counselor Rhino?
Just clarification on this, and it may just be me. Are we going to say we're going with this, or are we gonna wait till we report and consider this at the budget? Is that what I heard?
Coming forward for budget discussion at budget time.
Yeah, will be done, a report and discussion at budget before we commit. It's not a commitment total?
No.
Okay, fine.
Okay. Now we'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed with a vote of 9-1, with Counselor Merriam voting nay. Okay, that brings us to our next item, which is the fire service review with Calvin and Adam again.
And I don't know if Cheryl needs the council to re-sign in now that Councillor Perry's here, how that works. Perfect, okay. If I can try to drive this one, I unplugged and replugged in the cord. We'll see if I'm in the good books with the system now. Okay, I'm not in the good books. Shirley? So this report in front of you stemmed from a motion of council back in March directing staff to return with a report outlining options for undertaking a fire service review. Since that motion, the province did pass and it's received royal assent, the Bill 186, Support for Fire Protection Services Act. More recently, last month in June, the East Hants Fire Service Association sent council a letter indicating they were supportive of a fire service review to look at a strategic plan. And also part of that letter was around council funding it. And so really what this report provides to you today is a high-level look of kind of your fire service master planning process. And we've broken it really into 3 phases, and we're looking for direction today. Do you want us to not do anything and wait for the province? Do you want us to do phase 1, phase 2, or work towards phase 3? And I'll break those down at a very high level. The report is pretty lengthy. I'm not going to go into full detail, and there are quite a few recommendations coming out of this report, which we'll come back to. The background's in the report. You've received various reports over the last handful of months around the FSANS report that went to the province and provincial legislation, so that's not new news to you. You also received your 12-month notice letter from Minister Maslin talking about your need to conduct a fire protection service review with collaboration with your fire service providers, and your fire service providers are your 13 fire departments in East Hants, and Brooklyn does provide some coverage area as well. So moving forward, so risk assessments, community risk assessments, we'll call that phase one. And that's right now, the province is developing a community risk assessment tool that they're gonna roll out to fire service protection providers and municipalities to utilize. Both Calvin and I have had lots of conversations with provincial staff as late as a few weeks ago around the status of that tool, and they're fine tuning it right now. They are still targeting fall to release that tool. Our understanding is that there's quite a good tool in Alberta that they've made some sort of arrangement with to utilize that tool, and they're just kind of making it fit Nova Scotia's model. So phase one is your community risk assessment, and your community risk assessment really looks at the hazards in your community and the risks in your community, and how do you basically offset them with your service you're providing. The second phase is your fire protection service review, and it takes your risks from your community risk assessments, and it looks at your current service levels and the risks, and really produces kind of your review of, are there any gaps with your current services based on your community risks, and provides a fulsome look at your essentially your current state, your operational state, and there would be potentially some recommendations that would come out of that. And then the third phase is really your long-term planning. So it takes your first two phases, your community risk assessment, your fire protection service review, and then takes those pieces and builds them into your long-term strategic plan, which we've labeled in the staff report as your fire service master plan. What we're hearing from some of the fire departments and the council, seeing the pressures is around fire station planning. You know, there's 4 halls that are actively talking about planning: Maitland, Enfield, Lance, and Mount Uniacke. And those are kind of some pressure points. You've had Enfield come and speak to council about the need to look at taking over ownership of that building so they can apply for grants to help reduce the financial pressure. And council's not going to have that information around fire stations until the end part of your master planning. Really, your long-term planning is looking at the future state and current needs all together. Also, there's some pressures around daytime response in some of the more urban areas and additional staffing resources. Some of your levies went up in your last budget cycle to support additional staffing resources and coordination. So what we're asking for council is really to consider doing all 3 phases. We know at each phase of the check-in, we would need to do a check-in with council to see what we've learned, bring in that outside expertise. There's a section in this report around collaboration with your fire service and your fire service providers. We know they are the experts. They know their communities, and they have to be part of this process in a collaborative way. So if you choose to go through all 3 of the phases, we're asking you to allocate in the staff report the recommendations $150,000, and it's going to take time to get there. But we can really hit the ground running, start working on that scope of work, and really get ahead of the market for what's going to be required to do fire protection service reviews at some point. That being said, there's a piece around regulations. Speaking with the province, they haven't started drafting any regulations, and subsequently there will likely be standards coming forward. They've been loud and clear to us that that doesn't need to stop council from moving this forward if they so choose to move it forward. And the province has been really positive of the East Hants Fire Service and where we are, and a lot of kind of the work that they're doing. They anticipate that East Hants is kind of already at that threshold or close to it. So, really we're looking at how do you want to plan out your fire service. So I'm just going to kind of go up to the recommendations in the report. And the first recommendation is that we're suggesting that you take a phased approach under one procurement. And that's important because if council chooses to break this up, which is your choice, if you choose to look at your community risk assessments, pause, and then with your fire service providers, you do a fire protection review, and you pause, and then whenever you look at doing your master plan, you can, but you're going to likely be bringing on multiple consultants. They're going to be duplicating a lot of the review and the analysis that the previous consultant, it may be the same consultants that when we don't know, that's a procurement process. So moving forward as a full picture process allows you to speed up your timelines, to be more efficient, with your timelines, probably to save you costs. And less duplication of the work. So our first recommendation is doing the whole process, but utilizing the provincial tool with your fire service providers, the community risk assessment tool. The second recommendation in the staff report is around we've talked about the significance of the pressures of the capital planning. And so while we continue with this process, is to do the process so you can understand those long-term pressures. And then when you have your fire departments come to you, you have some evidence-based decisions, data that you can make those decisions on. The third piece is getting back to the East Hants Fire Service, and there's a bunch of sub-points. So we think council or committee today, as part of their recommendation to council, should respond to that letter. I mean, they know that it was part of this, your motion, that it was gonna be part of this conversation today, that you're supportive of a fire service master planning process in collaboration with the East Hants Fire Service, that they'll be invited to participate in the process in a format to be determined by the chiefs. The municipality will utilize the results of the community risk assessments to complete a protection review, which will then be part of your master plan in collaboration with the fire service. And due to the significant investment being made by council and the anticipated participation in the fire service, the results of the service planning will be binding. Now, some of them will be long-term initiatives and actions and timelines associated with those to set kind of that long-term piece. But your recommended motion is in front of you, is to move forward through the full process. Allocating the $150,000 from your general contingency reserve, and that engagement with council be done after each stage of the process. So that is your recommendation in front of you. Again, the alternatives we talked about, you can piece it out, or you can look at the full picture and look at those pressures that you're starting to see at the community level.
Okay, thank you. First to speak is Deputy Warden Dixon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to go over the report here, quite a report, and I think it's a positive thing for us. I mean, April 2026, it was the province put it through as a royal assent, so we really have no choice. It's going to be pushed at us. East Hants Fire Service has now made a request for us to do a study on this as well. I see it as a win-win situation. It's going to be probably hopefully better training, equipment, and things like that for the individual fire departments. And start with the community risk. And I think it's coming back to us every time a decision is being made. It's also going back to the fire service, chiefs for decisions and input. So I'm prepared to make the motion on this, but I think I'll leave it open for other councilors before we make the motion.
Thank you,
Thank you for
Councillor. Or Deputy Warden, and Warden, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, agree with the Deputy Warden's comments. Now that we have the request from the fire service, then that makes all the difference in the world for me. If the fire service is understanding and wanting this done, then I support them 100%. I'm a little concerned, and I understand that we would anticipate that the money and the work we put in, that whatever comes forward would be binding. Just a slight bit of caution, but I believe we will have the ability, when we set down what we require, to decide what it is. Because I would still just caution that if you had the need for a department somewhere that could not meet everything, we have to be cautious. We still have to be cognizant that these are volunteers and that the service they provide is invaluable to the communities that they serve. And if they're not there, it would not be good. So, but no, I think it's a good report, a good starting place, and I'm very happy. I would support one procurement, but coming back to council after each stage for further discussion. And anyway, I'm going to make the motion, and those that are on to speak will still be able to speak, and then others can speak to the motion. So I move that the Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommends to council that council authorize the CAO to undertake a fire protection service review and a fire services master plan with a project budget of $150,000 to be funded from GTR contingency reserve, and further, that engagement with council be done after each stage of the process.
Okay. On before the motion, Counselor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I waited a long, long time for this, and I know it's finally here, and I think it's well needed. However, I want a little bit of clarification through you to Adam. Staff recommended council undertake this work through a phased-in approach in under one procurement. So that will be that procurement, that company there or wherever does this, that will be that level of independency, clear of the municipality and the fire service, but also in the same token would be working with both. Am I correct in that assumption? So I am, so I can be assured of that.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes.
Yeah, and that level of independency may ruffle a few feathers in their recommendations, and I think we're gonna have to be prepared for that. It also could, put a check mark onto a lot of things that we've been all experiencing through the municipality and the fire service here. So I think it's gonna be a process, and I do agree with the warden that, that independent process may, like I say, getting back to ruffle a few feathers, but we have to understand that especially in the rural area, not in all of East Hants, but the rural areas, those rural departments are staffed by volunteers and they're just the lifeblood with poor EHS service that we're getting and the timelines that it takes to get out there and also aspects of, the mutual aid system. We have depend heavily on the mutual aid system, especially through the working day hours. So I'm very supportive of this and we'll see where it ends up. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Counselor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to staff, fully in support of this. It came up with the Fire Advisory Committee about this report is going to be needed. And I have full faith that during the contracting of this provider, they will be bound that when the provincial tool becomes available and all of the provincial requirements come out, that will be part of the contract and part of the review process. The one thing it says with the check-ins to the municipality, I would imagine where this is going to be a contracted thing, these might have to be in-camera sessions because nothing would be finalized with this. And I just want for the public to know that under a contractual basis, some of this stuff might not be readily opened. And what we can make available, we'll make available, but I would imagine that under the way, some of these check-ins might have to be done in camera. Because it could wouldn't it deal with contractual and money issues and
Through you, Madam Chair, I don't see the, I guess it will depend.
yes.
So each one will be done based on what the information being presented to council is about. It'll depend on, like a risk management or risk overview shouldn't need to be in camera. Anything to do with the actual contract of who we've procured to do this, and if there's issues with that contract, would have to be in camera. But the results, I think, would want to be played out in public as far as the fire service review goes. But again, it'll depend on what the report says. The fire department will also be informed. Adam will be discussing with the chiefs as we go through this process. So generally no, but it would always depend. Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to make known, that there could be aspects of this that might go in camera and nobody's trying to hide anything, but under the rules of contracting or things coming forward, that will be done. But the fire service chiefs and everything will be informed all along the way. So I think this process is gonna lead us to a better place for emergency services by our volunteers throughout all of East Hants. Thank you.
We are past our scheduled time for a break, so we will break corporate and residential services and come back to it at 10:40, 10:45? 10:40.
I took mine back and got regular ones. I didn't keep them.
Just in case you remember that.
Norval, thank you for thinking of me. We all signed in, Shirley. Welcome back to the Corporate and Residential Services Committee. The next item on the agenda is the 25-26 annual report, including the treasurer's report with Wade. And Kim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillors, this morning we have the annual report from 2025-2026 to present to you. It's a very lengthy document. It starts with a report on your strategic plan and your initiatives. It has a section in it around municipal operations, just to give some more context for the public on what we do as far as services, outward services. And then it talks about there's a report in here from your RCMP, and it has the treasurer's report and the financial statements. So the audit committee has already seen the financial statements. The treasurer's report is a summary of those financial statements. It sort of takes the consolidated statements of all of our operations and sort of simplifies it for the reader, because consolidated financial statements are not the easiest thing in the world to understand or interpret. So we use our treasurer's report to do that. I'm going to roll straight through the annual report into the treasurer's report and do a high level of where we ended the year. And then if you have detailed questions about the finances, Wade and or Jordan can help answer those. And then I think Wade has a few comments towards the end around the treasurer's report. So firstly, I think you can look at this report and see how much work has gone into not only the year, but pulling this report together. So I do want to give just a shout out to staff on pulling this together. Staff in my department work with the staff across the organization to make sure that this is a comprehensive report for your review. And then, of course, finance staff work very diligently to get our year-end wrapped up and the treasurer's report written and included into this document, where they have a very short window of sort of May and June to get that done. So my huge appreciation to everybody who helped put this together and got this done for our July committee. So I'm going to jump through this report. There's a few pages I'm just going to skip over. It is a report that is meant to be sort of digested in its entirety. We, of course, don't have time to do that today, but I'll hit the highlights for you, and then you can take some time to read it at your leisure. So just skipping through, we have a section, again, this is for external folks as well. A lot of people use this report, folks who are applying for jobs here, folks who want to move here, learn more about East Hants. So we do have a lot of information in here for those folks. We have our new strategic plan in place, of course. So you have a new mission, which talks about our program and service excellence, building strong and thriving communities. So hopefully you'll see that represented throughout this report. And then our vision to be that vibrant, welcoming community for both rural and urban living in East Hants. There is a message from the warden here. Of course, she references the new strategic plan. That really is your guiding document for council. Also giving a shout out to Councillor Dixon, Deputy Warden, and then a thank you to Deputy Warden McPhee for his service as well throughout the year. One of the things that you'll see throughout this report is talking about sort of us making things better for our residents and us doing things better internally. You as a council did spend much of your last year deliberating your budget for the year that we're in now. So that is, of course, a huge part of your role in this municipality. So she references that. And then also we have pictured here on the warden's message, the keys to the municipality were given to Wyatt Sanford for his contributions to the community and his recognition of earning a bronze medal at the Paris Olympic Games. In my message, you'll hear a lot of what I refer to in my message throughout the strategic planning section, talking about, you know, how we use your strategic plan to guide the work that we do and to set the priorities that we set. A lot of what you'll see in this report is around wastewater projects from an infrastructure point of view. It seems to be the year for wastewater. You've got a lot of work going on in Lance. You've got the desludging of the lagoon that happened, and lots of revitalization of those systems. Some of the stuff that you don't necessarily see is the work that Tippy's doing around GIS and asset management. Jillian and Amy and Tippy together are an asset management team that most people would die to have. And Tippy got her 10-year certificate here this morning. She's doing amazing things internally with GIS and touching almost every facet of our organization and making that better. So that's the kind of stuff that doesn't necessarily get seen, but is really improving the information that we have to provide to you folks to make decisions, to developers, to residents. It's really coming along. We've also done a lot of work around our East Hants housing strategy this year. You've put in made some key decisions around building accessory dwelling units. You've made some policy decisions, and the municipality has invested in quite a bit of land work this year. Not everything resulted in a land purchase, but we did buy 2 key pieces this year. And we're still focusing on what the Elmsdale and Lance school sites will bring. And of course, the Sportsplex has gotten to a point where the building is really thriving. You've put a lot of investments into that building. The revitalization continues around the Sportsplex, and as well as our aquatics programs. We are back to full force, if not better, than we were before the flood, and really working towards that has been one of our goals this year. And then my message is, it would not be complete without recognizing that the work that you see in these pages is only scratching the surface of what gets done with these walls. So we don't talk about the work to keep the servers running, to keep the water potable, to keep the garbage going. Like, that's not the work that's outlined in these pages. There is an awful lot of work that happens that is not, we call it sort of that annual planned activities kind of work. Like preparing a budget for you to deliberate on takes months, and that's not something that is specifically called out in the work that staff are doing. So you have an amazing team of individuals who work for you. They are by far one of the best municipal teams in the province. So I wanted to recognize that there is more work than just what's outlined here being done on a day-to-day basis. You are all very prominently positioned in the report. We do talk a little bit about what you've done this year, the presentations you've received from your community groups, and the support that you've given them is outlined in the grant list at the back of the report, and then the list of bylaws and policies that you've reviewed as a council throughout the year is also included in each report. We talk a little bit about the staff that we have here. We're at 105 full-time equivalent positions. We also have over 100 part-time positions, primarily at the Sportsplex, at the Aquatic Center, and in our seasonal positions. Most of those individuals would report through to Alana in the Parks, Rec, and Culture Department. We have our senior management team with a brief description of what each department does. And then we move into our key strategies. So this report, the primary purpose of this report is to outline for council and the public, you have set your strategic plan. What initiatives have we taken to sort of move each one of those objectives forward? So I'm not going to go through each one of these objectives. There isn't time for that today. Under your infrastructure objective, what we've really focused on this year is getting funding for some of your larger capital projects, and we've been very successful at doing that. Some of the funding that we've applied for is still pending, but we have every reason to believe that we will be successful in that. We've done a lot of work around our transportation infrastructure, around AT development. I mentioned all of the wastewater infrastructure that we've done, in Lance. An incredible amount of work being done there and coordinated throughout that community. Adam's team is working on our sustainability initiatives, looking at the climate change action plan that we talked about earlier today. That has had quite a bit of community engagement done on it. And we've been working with the Efficiency Nova Scotia's roving municipal energy manager plan to move that work along. So Anne and Amy have been doing a great job on that. We've got a lot of our baseline data done and a lot of our inventories done, and now we can move forward with sort of where we go from here. Looking for additional water sources, the master plan of such continues. We have initiated our Grand Lake water withdrawal study, which is being done. So we'll wait for the results from that. We talked a little bit about our corporate asset management project. The bullets here just identify sort of some of the details of what we've done, creating that inventory of assets, creating GPS data points, all really important pieces before we move into sort of an asset management operational phase. And as I mentioned, we've got some key land holdings. We bought 34 acres of land for long-term municipal needs in Enfield. We've been doing our planning around phase 7 of the business park and the two school sites. And then we bought 3 acres of land around Burnt Coat National Park. Burnt Coat National Park. Burnt Coat Head Park to enhance our tourism holdings in that area. So under corporate excellence, this is a lot of what you probably don't see or the public doesn't see on a daily basis. This is really how we improve our service delivery to the public. Looking at things like building permit services, putting those more of an online product, speeding up the speed at which people can get those, taking some of the smaller building permits and making them more automated. We've done a lot of work internally around programming and automating our internal processes in order to free up our staff to be doing the work that's important for them to do. So we've done sort of like an expense claim, for example. We've automated that entire service this year, and it's phenomenal work that's being done so we can free up some of our time to do more important municipal work. One of the things that I think you would have seen over the last year or two, we talk about succession planning at East Hants a lot. We talk about making sure that when somebody leaves or retires, that our services aren't interrupted by that we have that sort of second level of service all the time. I think you've seen it, for example, this morning in the finance department, and over the year. We've been really promoting a lot from within and using the resources that we have to fill key roles and then backfilling those with external competitions. We've done a lot of document processing, or process documentation. And we're getting there. So I think this goal is really important for me as CAO to make sure that this place will run regardless of who's here. We know what we need to do. It's documented how to do it. and we continue on. So that's a lot of internal work that's happening in that score. The Equitable East Hants and the Accessibility Plan are both plans that were approved by council in this past year. And they will need some internal work. We haven't gotten there yet as far as sort of operationalizing those plans. Part of the deputy CAO role that's in the budget this year will be charged with moving those two forward. So I think this time next year, you'll see lots of more initiatives under those two elements. The big thing this year for our financial framework strengthening was our water rate review. So we did do a 3-year rate review for the water utility, and all reports from our consultants and from the URB were that it was excellent. The hearing itself was very short. The questions were all answered, and we didn't have any information requests from the board, which is really quite unheard of. So I think that's to Wade and Jesse's teams. Kudos to them for that. We have talked a lot about organizational risk, and it's one of your objectives is to proactively manage that risk. So we've done some work internally on incident management, on reporting and claims processing. A lot of that work is being done, things like your counselors participating in conflict of interest training. Anything that is going to keep the municipality on track and sort of out of trouble is what we would put under the risk management framework. And then, of course, under our solid waste division, EPR was the big topic of the year. Andrea and her team did an amazing job implementing EPR and the new recycling contracts at East Hants. And I think with the first 4 months of that in place, we've recycled an extra 60 tons of recycling. So fairly impressive on that score. The next strategic goal is making sure that that we provide services and programs and facilities that we can do programming for our community, and that allows people to be engaged in their community. So there's a lot in here. Obviously, all of the work that's being done on getting grants for our recreation assets, and things as simple as supporting the new farmers market cooperative in East Hants that council supported. Tourism, heritage, sport, recreation. Again, a lot of programs that have been launched. There's some mentioned here. There's more mentioned in the municipal operations section of the report. The grants that you provide to your tourism operators, sorry. And then Alana's team works really hard on engaging with those tourism operators, engaging with the not-for-profit communities, looking at your volunteer base in East Hants. So there are opportunities that we facilitate each year to bring those folks together. Also under affordable strong communities is your affordable housing component. So you've done your housing strategy this year. You have your Housing Accelerator Fund, which you're using those dollars to really make a difference on some of the projects that will support more housing. And then you've done a lot this year around your land use bylaw as it relates to accessory dwelling units. So trying to facilitate the creation of more accessory dwelling units in East Hants has been key this year. Around our pride of place, I think things like giving the key to the municipality to Wyatt help us. One of the things that really impressed council about Wyatt's experience was how him being at the Olympics and being on that international stage brought that community together. So really, really impressive that somebody could have that kind of impact on a community. Looking at, we've been holding those sessions with our volunteers and our not-for-profit groups, but we've also participated in things like the Wellness Expo. Explore Your Own Backyard is an event that council puts on to encourage people to get out to the Hants North area and visit Burnt Coat in particular. And then things like Wetland Appreciation Day at the at the Fundy Title Interpretive Center, sort of help bring people together. One of the things that we've talked about for next year is our new communications person who's going to do sort of the solid waste and communication community engagement. Hopefully that person will be out promoting Pride of Place more throughout East Hants in the next year. Again, your official community plan and your planning strategies, these ones seem to tend to cross over years, but you've got your Lance secondary strategy, your Mount Uniacke strategy. Each one of those has strategies that come off of that to do studies. We're doing this year would be the Enfield secondary planning strategy. So there's all kinds of these types of strategies and studies being done that really hit a lot of these objectives. When we talk about our emergency operations, emergency management, fire, and police, it's been a big year for those topics. We have, as CAO, I don't think I've engaged on a topic more with the province in any other stage of my career. So a lot of it is out of our control, but a lot of it we're at the table for. So we have been present for the fire service review. We've been engaging with them, with Department of Justice on the policing review. Although we have RCMP and it's sort of fairly standard operations for them, it's important that we keep up with the recommendations that are coming from those reviews. And then, of course, the emergency management department at the province has been created and is really has pointed us or pushed us towards becoming a member of a REMO, which we've been working on. And they've put out new standards for emergency management and whatnot that was a lot of work to work through. So we've been providing that support, updating council as needed. Of course, council continues to provide support to your fire departments through your grant programs. There has been a few of the $100,000 grants for the rural departments provided this year. We anticipate more in the coming year. And then, of course, your participation on overseeing the annual performance plan for the RCMP was key this year as well to formalize that. Continuing on under strong community, we've done our flood mitigation. We've got our flood mitigation objectives. To get to that strategy, we need to continue to do some studies. So the Paley Brook flood mitigation study was finalized this year, and the Barney Brook flood mitigation study is awarded and is being worked on as we speak. Sorry, it was substantially complete. We're now doing the mill study, which will be done in this year, the Millbrook study. And then I spoke earlier about the climate change action plan. We talked about that a little bit this morning too. So getting to that point where we have an update to the municipal climate change action plan. We've done our public consultation. We're working through some of the recommendations now, and that plan will come to you within the next several months, I'll say. Few or several, I'm not sure which. Adam's not looking at me. So under economic prosperity, again, this is the work of your three business development officers, but it's also the work of everybody else in the organization. So one of the things that we make sure we instill here is that economic development and supporting our businesses, supporting our entrepreneurs is not just the job of the economic development officers. Everything we do supports the growth of our community, supports those folks. And that's important for people to understand that this, the three folks in our business development are key for supporting our businesses directly, but from a East Hants brand, from an East Hants global picture, we're all responsible for that, for making sure that people feel welcome, that it's a good community, it's got good financial policies, everything that that concerns business development and residential development are things that we're all concerned about. The business development, business park goal is always being worked on. We're currently working on conceptual planning for phase 7. We've got those several iterations of that as the properties around us are developing as well. So we continue to work on that. And around transit, there is a report on Thursday night around your funding models for transit. You've indicated that you want to go out for public engagement. So there's been a couple of reports done in 25-26 that will result in work being done on that portfolio in 26-27. And then again, the official community plan, you'll notice, shows up in, I think, 3 out of 4 of your key objectives because it is that important. Everything that your community does, everything as it grows out and as it develops is in that official community plan. So it hits all of these pillars for growth and stability. We've worked a lot this year on with Department of Health on different variations of what kind of space needs they have. We've worked on a couple of bigger leases with them to make sure that social and public infrastructure is being built in East Hants and is available to folks in East Hants. We, of course, can't control where they decide to put doctors and whatnot, but we certainly work with them closely to facilitate their needs. And then I would say on the tourism side, our business development folks do support tourism networking and development. Again, there's only so much that you can do from a staff point of view and from a municipal point of view to encourage investment. You're not in the business of doing the business investment, but encouraging it seems to be working really well. Probably one of the biggest things, and I probably skipped over it here, we worked with Mass Timber Company to attract them to the Elmsdale Business Park. You as a council did some work around making sure that they had the land available. And that is going to be a huge investment for East Hants. So that's the kind of thing that, you work on it for 3 or 4 years. It might come to fruition, it might not, but in this case, it is. The permits have been issued for phase 1, and we're really excited to see what benefit and impact that has on our community. So I'm not going to go through the municipal operations in any great detail. All of the information is here, some statistics on our solid waste programs, some statistics on our community building and planning and development. The one interesting fact is around, you've had 22 planning applications received this year in 2025-26. 12 of them were approved, 3 were refused, and 9 remain in progress as of March 31st, 2026. So I would say most municipalities would love to have 22 planning applications come through in any given year. So kudos to the planning staff for managing that work. We did add a section on the municipal housing strategy just to outline the priorities from that strategy, given that it was done in 2025. We've outlined some of the parks and the work that's being done in Parks, Rec and Culture. And I don't know if any of you have been out to the Fundy Tidal Interpretive Center, but it got a bit of a makeover this year, and it looks absolutely amazing with new floors and new washrooms throughout the building. Aquatics and Sportsplex, we've highlighted. Community recreation, we've highlighted. And community development is also got some highlights in here. Of course, with our volunteers highlighted in the Volunteer of the Year being Katie Hines. There's a picture of her in the Warden. And then the others that received their awards last year. Of note, in our tourism, we welcomed over 98,000 visitors in 2025 to Burnt Coat Head Park and Fundy Tidal Interpretive Center. So pretty incredible. I remember delivering this report not too many years ago when that number was 24, 25, and we thought that was a lot of people. So 98,000 visitors to those two facilities. And of course, we continue to support our little Atlantic mud pittocks out at Burnt Coat Head Park and receive federal funding for those as well. We do have a section in here on EMO. Of course, we did animal control this year, geared up throughout 2025-26 for an April 1 start on doing our own animal control. So most of the work was done in the year that we're referencing. We do have a blurb here about the the fire service, and then thought it was important that we recognize the Firefighter Long Service Awards in this report. And then the grants that are given to council, total 4.5 million for your levies, and then about 327 million in grants to the fire department, and then you've got your total at about 4.9 million contribution to the 13 fire departments across the municipality. I won't go into the RCMP. Folks can read that. It does reflect the APP priorities that council set back in last year. And of course, you've had your 2026 meeting, which set some new priorities, but these are the 25-26 ones. And a total cost on the RCMP this year of $6.5 million. So jumping into the treasurer's report, I'll go over the very high level, and again, the finance folks in the background can help if we have more questions. We had a budget this year of about $51 million. We've also outlined in this report about 6.8 million in infrastructure investment throughout East Hants in 24-25. I'm not going to go through this information because a lot of it is from your budget document. You folks know it, but folks who are picking up the treasurer's report for the first time might not. So I'm not going to talk about the property taxes because you have all of that information. What's really, I think, important for you to note, so when you look at your financial statements, you've got a consolidated financial statement. It has a capital fund, a municipal operating fund, which you break down into your general tax rate, your urban service rate, and your other area rates, which would be your street lights. And then you've got your water utility, operating capital reserves, and your reserve funds, which have operating reserves, capital reserves, and obligatory reserves, which are sort of your sewer and water infrastructure reserves. So as you can imagine, when you get your consolidated financial statements, all those numbers are all put together, and you can't really tell the breakdown between them. So what we tried to do in this treasurer's report, I'm going to get through the consolidated stuff here. What we tried to do, these are your, sorry, those are your infrastructure, which we've talked about most of them. What we try to do is break it down between municipal operations, water utility, and capital reserves. So this year, in your municipal operations, the total transfers to reserves for your surplus are about $988,000. $806,000 of that is a surplus in your general tax rate, $140,000 is in your urban service rate, and then $40,000 is in your other lights rate. So from this page, we then break that down into your general tax rate discussion. You'll see here there's higher, so your surplus comes from either higher revenue or lower expenses. This is a combination of both of those. So we've got $650,000 more in detransfer tax, we got $300,000 more in external grant funding, tipping fees, that type of thing. And on the expense side, so for a total of 1.6 million in revenue that we didn't anticipate, on the expense side, we've got some savings in a lot of our operational categories. And then we've got some expenses in our operational categories that went over budget, that you would have seen in your budget reporting that we do. So that would be your snow removal, went over budget this year. You have reserves to bring in to offset that. Salaries, honorariums, and benefits a little bit, power, tax exemptions, those types of things. So all of that being said, your surplus this year was $1.4 million. There was three transfers from reserves and 2 reserves. So we didn't need to bring as much in to cover off our solid waste operations from reserves. So that was a decrease in a transfer from reserves to cover that deficit. And then we have an increase going to reserves for the Sportsplex operations. So it had $252,000 to the positive compared to what you planned for. And then, of course, you had your original planned deficit, which is just a number that we use to balance the budget. So your total surplus to the end of the year going to your contingency reserve is $806,000. That takes into account all of your planned transfers to reserves, your unplanned transfers. The report that you did this morning had some of those numbers in it that you approved this morning. And the financial statements reflected all of that, that the audit committee reviewed and council approved last month. On the urban service rates, same idea, same table. You can look at this in detail, and if you have any questions, we can answer them. But again, your levies were higher, your general operations expenses were lower. So what ended up happening in the end was you had a surplus of $140,000 compared to the $5,000 deficit that you'd planned to run, again, based on that balancing of the budget. Your reserves in the urban service rate are not as healthy as they should be, in my opinion. But we've talked about that quite a bit over the number of years. We have a lot of reserves in East Hants, where you're spending most of your money in the urban service rate. I think you could have more. But you do have plans in place. So you are planning, for example, one of your biggest expenses is sidewalks. You're planning for that and building up that reserve as you go. Wastewater, the same for your pumps and your lift station replacements. All of those things are covered under your reserves. And then the water utility ran a deficit at the end of the year. So this is sort of a separate section of those consolidated statements. It's not in that $806,000. You did run a deficit in your water utility. You've done your water rate review. So that shouldn't happen in the next 3 years at least. The rates should cover that. But again, every time you pull down from that consolidated balance surplus, then that's detrimental to the utility and the ratepayers. So the rate review is done. The good news is you plan to have an $883,000 deficit, and you only had a $409,000 deficit. So that is a better result. And then we talked about reserves. We do have a significant amount of reserves, about $56 million. Gives you a little bit of a breakdown here, and there is a fuller breakdown, more wholesome in the financial statements. The financial condition indicators, of course, this report uses data from 2023 and 2024 and 2024 and 2025 for these. These are all green, which is great. They did do some work on the indicators, clean them up a little bit, so we're all green. There's a lot of detail on these key indicators, each one of them, and what it means, and we'll let you read through that on your own. And then the very last piece of your report covers your municipal grant program. So this is a table that shows you every grant that has been issued in the last year, how much they were issued for, and what program they were issued under. Again, you can see a lot of them are your maintenance grants for municipally owned property, your staffing grants for the tourism properties. Those are sort of listed under that tourism section as the support you provide to nonprofit tourist organizations. several beautification grants from each of you. And then the charitable organization tax exemption, so this is the one where the bylaw F400 gives tax exemptions to organizations, so they don't pay taxes on their buildings. One of the bigger ones that's newish, is the Corridor Community Options, so that's $192,000 tax exemption that they get on the building up on Park Road. And then the water utility also gets about $194,000 of tax exemptions on the water utility property. That is actually taxable assessment under the Assessment Act, so that's granted back. Lots of community grants that you've supported over the years. Your community partnership grants the council participates in at budget time. Your district recreation funds of about $205,000 invested in the community and capital infrastructure for nonprofit groups. Your EMO grants for ground search and rescue and the hazmat organization out of Colchester. Your fire department annual operating grants and your general government grants are listed here. And then some other smaller ones, not so small being the MTAP program. That's the individual assistance that's given for people, low-income folks within East Hants. So total grants of 1.4 million to nonprofit groups primarily over the last year. And then we get into the consolidated financial statements. I can guarantee you no one wants me to go over those. So Madam Chair, I'm going to hand it over to Wade, and he's going to have a few comments, and then we'll open the floor for questions.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I won't reiterate what Kim had to say on the treasurer's report, and I won't go into detail about the documents that are in the treasurer's report, but there is a great deal of information there for those who would like to read it in detail. I just wanted to make a few summary comments about the results for the 25-26 fiscal year. And speaking strictly in terms of financial results only, I would say that, in my opinion, we had a very good, positive financial results for that fiscal year, as demonstrated by what I consider to be these important factors. One, we had a surplus in the GTR. There was a surplus in the USR. Reserves have increased by approximately $4 million. The capital fund accumulated surplus has increased by approximately $3 million. Our long-term debt in terms of debentures with the province of Nova Scotia has reduced by $2 million. All of the financial indicators for the 24-25 fiscal year are all positive. And we are expecting they will continue to be so into the future, at least the near future. Of course, if there was one item that might be considered negative financial result this fiscal year was the water utility. It had an operating deficit of $400,000 approximately. But that isn't compared to the budget, which was around $800,000 operating deficit for the year. And with the new rates that are approved by the NSRAB, that should turn all around in this fiscal year to what we would hope be a break-even year for 26-27. So in my opinion, those are probably the most important factors from the financial results perspective for 25-26. So yeah, a very good year from my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just going back and looking at page 60 where we have the published tax rates, I do believe we lowered the commercial rate by 1 cent in last year's budget, and it's not reflected in this report. It says it's remained constant. It says 257 instead of 256.
In this year, we lowered it, but
Oh, sorry, my mistake, yeah. Other than that, what I want to say is to staff and everybody who worked on this is a very great report. Very, very detailed, very easy to read and easy to see. This is something, every year I take this and I drop it off to the library, so anybody who wants to come in and can see it. And, I will say, in the people I talk to, that do come and pick up the report and talking to the people, library staff, the reports are getting better and better every year, and that's a tribute to your guys' hard work and the continued success by this council in providing service to the public. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Counselor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great report again. I just have one question about, I'm looking at page 58 about the residential commercial split. So in 2021, 2022, we were 92.2 to 7.8, then residential went up. Then now we're back after 5 years to the same where we were at. I just want to mention to staff to look at neighboring municipality, what's happening in Halifax especially, because they moved from R1 to MU2 all the way up to Mount Uniacke, all over the place, and here on the other side of the river, and where you're allowed to put any home-based business up to 2,000 square feet as of right, instead of us having 80 meters square. So that scares me, because anyone who want to open a small business, like we just had a report we're gonna talk about later, where people want small home business and stuff. So with 80 square meters, there's nothing you can do about it. Like there's no business can survive on 80 square meters. So if we don't open up, everybody who wanna move to Mount Uniacke to open a small business is gonna go down the road in Upper Sackville and open it. So we're gonna lose a lot. I think staff should open, look at what's happening in other municipality and try to make ours better. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. CAO?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So with respect to the report, today we'd be looking for a motion to approve the report, accept it and put it on file, or if you want to have some time to digest it some more, we can delay that motion till September. If any counselors want printed versions of the report, please send an email to Julianne and she can arrange to have them printed for you and picked up. The report will be on our website as soon as council approves it next week. So if you want to direct people to our website, we'll also be promoting the report on our socials to make sure that people are aware of its existence and can have a read of it if they want. So if you do want printed versions for whatever, if it's the library or the community center in your area or wherever you might want, please let me know, or please let Julianne know, and she can make that happen. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Counselor Rhino?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I have a library of old treasurers' reports that I need now. There's so much difference in those ones in years back to this one. This is a full report. And not being over lavish with praise, I'm gonna say well done, and that's it. Thank you.
Okay,
We'll take it.
yeah. Counselor Perry, we'll move on quickly.
I just, looking on page 91, under the recipients for community grants, that's a different Michael Perry for athlete travel than me. I just want to make that known to everybody. It was not for me, it was for a different Michael Perry. It's a pretty common name. Thank you.
I would also like to note, Madam Chair?
Certainly.
On that same vein, page 92, the JT Snow bursaries, the Chignecto Regional Center for Education, that would have been the Hants North grant, so we'll clarify that in the report as well.
Okay. Okay, counselors. Oh. Counselor Mitchell?
Just looking through, there's a couple typing errors, and I'll pass it on to Julian. This is just a school. Can you read my note?
Yes, I can. I can read
page 24 and page 90. I apologize for being like that.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
That's just the school mom in me.
Excellence is one of our key virtues here.
Counselor Tingley.
Through the chair, so do you want a motion now to, okay, I'm gonna make the, move that to accept and approve the annual and treasurer's reports for this year.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Seeing no one to speak, we'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Seeing no further business from corporate and residential services, we are adjourned and we'll move into Parks, Recreation, and Culture.
And just a note to everyone, you have to sign in again as we switch committees.
I'd like to call this meeting of Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee to order. First order of business, approval of the minutes of June 16th, 2026. Any errors or omissions? You seeing none, I'll approve them. Next order of business is an in-camera session for a contractual issue. Motion to go in camera for that? Moved by Deputy Warden Dixon, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. All those in favor? Contrary of mine? Motion is carried. I'd like to report that we met in camera to discuss a contractual issue. We will continue that conversation later on, either in the afternoon or at the extension of council. So with that, I will move to adjourn for lunch to reconvene with Planning Advisory Committee at approximately 1.